Combine, and now the Browns reportedly say he's, quote, firmly in the mix for the #1 overall pick. Mind you, he'd be the first running back taken since 1995 when Kajana Carter went to the Bengals. Coach, is he worth the top pick in the draft, in your opinion?
I'd be shocked if Cleveland didn't take a quarterback with the first overall pick. At this point, you've got the ability to take anybody you want, and they desperately need a quarterback. They've got to take it with that spot. And I think if you're in that spot, that's the position that you ultimately want to be taking. If you're taking a running back or a left tackle or a defensive end, that means the class isn't very strong. You've got to use that pick to go quarterback.
Also, you also think if you take any position other than a quarterback at #1, the only way to justify it is you think that guy is going to be a Hall of Fame caliber player, correct?
Yeah, look, whoever you take #1 overall in the NFL draft, you think should be a Hall of Fame player. That guy should be special just based off the fact that he is the best player in college football. He should be unique.
Right. Every year, there are going to be guys that are going to be Hall of Fame players. Right. If you're at the top of the draft, you don't want to miss. And you're to the it's about need, but it's not about need. Like Cleveland, even if they had a quarterback and there was a Hall of Fame player, they would be interested in that player because they have to improve their roster. Coach, I said this earlier. If I'm in love with Barkley, I wouldn't mind taking him with the first pick to take him away from the Giants or Indianapolis because I feel fairly comfortable with a couple guys. I don't believe there's one quarterback that is just head and shoulders over the rest of the quarterbacks. So if I'm in love with Barkley, I don't mind taking him at #1. And also, I might create some more leverage for the other quarterbacks because the other teams don't need quarterbacks early in the draft.
But here's my question, if you're Cleveland. What are the odds you believe there are 3 franchise quarterbacks in this draft? Because if you do not take a quarterback at #1, you are leaving yourself exposed to, at #4, taking the 3rd quarterback on your board. I know the Giants right now say they're not drafting a quarterback, and I know the Colts won't draft a quarterback. But that doesn't mean the Broncos won't trade up.
Okay,
or the Jets won't trade up.
I take Barkley with the #1 pick, all right? The Giants, they take a quarterback. Which one you want to give them?
Josh Rosen.
All right, we'll give another quarterback to Indianapolis. Which one you want?
Sam Darnold.
Okay, you know who I got now? I got Baker Mayfield.
Well, you want Baker anyway.
No, I'm just saying. Look at your options as far as loading this team for the future. You have a future quarterback who wants to be in Cleveland. You have a dynamic running back who we have seen, Todd Gurley, L. Bell, Ezekiel Elliott. We have seen these guys be force multipliers from the running back position. So I wouldn't mind taking that chance if I just believe that Barkley, if I believe he's a Hall of Fame player, I take him. I'm not worried about the #4 pick as much. We're getting a quarterback there if I believe he's a Hall of Fame player.
And you don't think Barkley will be there at 4?
I don't know whether he'll be there at 4. I don't even know if that's going to be the guy that they want. To me, if there's a quarterback that you like and you have the first overall draft pick, you take the quarterback that you like. Because whether you take him at 1 or 4, you could lose him at 4. So if there's someone that you have a conviction
the option of the quarter I like, I'm going to pluck him now because of what it means to the franchise.
And look what happened last year. The rumor was that they were going to take Mitch Trubisky, right? That was very well known. So what does Chicago do? Chicago trades up in front of them and takes the guy that they wanted. And they went with the defensive end first. And I said this last year. If that's your guy, if you really believe that Trubisky is your guy, you better take him 1 because there's no guarantee that he's going to be there at your next pick. Well, now, it may work out well for him, at the end of the day. But if you have that conviction, you better get him where you can get him.
And there's a misnomer this time of year about quarterback and value. And that is, it was the discussion with Mitch Trubisky. Well, you couldn't take him at 1, but he'd be a fine pick at 12. There is no...
Yeah, that's silly.
It's silly. There is no historical quarterback profile of a guy who was a great pick at 12, who would have been a bad pick at 1, or a guy, or the reverse being true. Like, if a quarterback ends up being worthy of a first-round pick, he is more valuable than every player in that draft except for the quarterbacks better than him. So if you like a player enough to where you're saying, I would take Baker Mayfield at #8, and he's the highest quarterback on your board, then in my mind, you got to bite the bullet and take him at 1, even if you're like, there's potential for a little more value if we do this. Because especially, and I know it's a new management, but the Browns traded away the pick that became Carson Wentz. They then last year traded away the pick that became Deshaun Watson. I think if you are really playing with fire, if you like a quarterback and you don't take him at number one.
And they made it known that they were interested in Mitch Trubisky, but they weren't going to take him number one overall, so that allowed Chicago to do what they did to move up and get him. And at this point, if not all the quarterbacks are created equal for your team, so if you feel strongly about one of those guys, you take him number one.
You said something earlier that I thought was interesting. When you say control the draft, what do you mean by that? Like, explain to the audience, when you say if they were to take Barkley 1, they control the draft. What does that mean to you?
Especially from an offensive standpoint. If you're getting 2 of the 4 best players offensive-wise. Cleveland, man, people don't realize Cleveland's defense has been pretty good. They've added some good pieces. Last year, they have a home run in Myles Garrett. And they have the pieces around it. If they could build a strong offensive team, and you're able to do it, if you control that first round, they have the first pick in the second round. So they have tremendous momentum as far as adding pieces to the rest of their draft board that can make this team can be competitive instantly, I believe, through one draft.
And they're going to go through free agency, so they've got over $100 million in salary cap space. They have 5 picks in the first 2 rounds. They have 12 picks overall. This situation right there is about as good as it can get. It's almost like being an expansion team, but they have a lot more talent than the expansion team. They have 3 number 1 draft picks from last year. This team should take a significant leap, provided that they make good decisions. And the first decision is which quarterback is going to be here for that team.
It just feels like there's not anyone you ask will give you a different answer as to who the best quarterback coming out of this draft is. The way I usually hear it, there's always one guy and then everyone else is kind of there. But because there seems to be so much parity with the 2 or 3 or 4 guys, I don't know, I kind of like your idea. I kind of like the idea of taking what could be a fantastic running back, then you get yourself a quarterback. If you think the top 3 are maybe not all the same, but at least have equal in talent.
Here's the thing that I believe is likely true. Even though you might say Darnold or Baker, and I say Rosen, and maybe you say Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, whomever, the Browns, John Dorsey, the new GM of the Browns, I guarantee you come the draft, there's one that he likes the most. Right? Like, how often, I shouldn't say I guarantee it.
We're really early in this process. When you get to the combine, there's this perception that everybody kind of has their board set and they're just fine-tuning things. Most of the coaches were working on, first they were on vacation, then they were working on free agency, and the combine is a jumping off point for a lot of the staffs. So the head coaches are starting to learn about these guys. There's workouts that come into play. There's interviews. There's team visits. A lot's going to happen.
But the resume for Barkley is over with because he has a clean everything. We just want to see how fast he was. How explosive is the guy? So these other quarterbacks, the story is not over for them. Coach is right. But Barkley, man, you can wrap it up and you can take him to draft day. To me, if I could get 2 of the best players in this draft, that's what I would try to do in Cleveland.
If you were Barkley, would you even do the pro day? Would you do anything else?
I think that he's so competitive, and he just lets him. This is another day. I believe he can run in the low 4.3s. His 40 time at the combine, he had a bad start. He popped straight up. So I believe at his pro day, he can run in the low 4.3s to just enhance what I believe is a tremendous, tremendous legacy in college football that was led by L. Bell playing at Michigan State, Ezekiel Elliott playing at Ohio State. All that transfers over Big Ten football to the NFL. You got that,
Just for
Dusty?
fun one day, we should all go out and just run a 40-yard dash. Like, just to see what our time would be.
I don't think that would be that fun.
Not fun.
No.
Okay. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
That's for fun. We should go get chicken wings. That would be fun. Are you in? That's about
No,
as fun
I'll
as
be
your 40-yard
outside
dash.
running back and forth while you guys
Coach,
eat.
we were coming to the set today.
Okay.
At 6:28. Jenna.
The turf monster reached up and grabbed her.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Near wipeout.
My wife pulled back on the 40 thing.
yeah. I was
So
afraid
maybe
her
we'll
chiclets
put
was gonna hit on the
sneakers
table
her
here.
Gotta run. First things first after this.
Chiclets, that's teeth. The front two, right on the edge.